The sea. Vast, untamed, merciless. For centuries, humans have looked upon its endless horizon with awe, fascination, and fear. Every ripple, every crash of a wave carries whispers of dangers lurking beneath, monsters, tempests, and unseen forces that could swallow a ship whole in a heartbeat. This is not a story of calm waters or safe harbors. No, today we set sail into the perilous, unpredictable heart of the ocean, where myths come alive and the line between survival and doom is razor thin. Before we get rolling, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and smash that like button. And subscribing is the easiest way to make sure we keep exploring together. It keeps these stories coming. While you settle in, drop a quick note. Where are you watching from? And what's the clock saying over there? I love seeing all the little corners of the world that show up. Okay, take a deep breath, get comfy, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's ease into this journey. Imagine you are a sailor in the ancient Mediterranean, centuries before GPS, radar, or weather reports. The horizon stretches endlessly, a shifting canvas of blues and grays. Every day is a gamble against nature's might. One wrong move, one unexpected gust of wind, and your life could be claimed by the water. The sea was more than just a route from one port to another. It was a test, a battlefield, and for many, a grave. But danger at sea wasn't always natural. The ancients believed the oceans teemed with creatures beyond imagination. Stories passed from sailor to sailor, from generation to generation, spoke of monsters that defied reason. One moment your ship might sail smoothly through a narrow strait, the next unseen jaws could snap shut, or the water itself could twist and churn, forming whirlpools that no mortal strength could escape. These weren't bedtime tales, they were survival guides, lessons on bravery, and mirrors of human nature. Among the most feared of these maritime perils were Scylla and Charybdis, two names that echoed through the halls of history, whispered by every navigator who dared brave the dangerous waters between Sicily and the Italian mainland. Scylla, the six-headed monster, waiting patiently to snatch sailors from their decks. Charybdis, the colossal whirlpool, capable of dragging entire ships into the abyss. Alone, each was deadly. Together, they formed a gauntlet where survival demanded not just skill, but impossible choices. It's important to understand the stakes. The ancients didn't speak of these creatures lightly. Every legend had a lesson, every myth a warning. Sailors knew that passing too close to one could mean certain death, and yet the strait was unavoidable. Trade, warfare, exploration, they had no choice but to confront these dangers. And so, tales of courage, cunning, and sacrifice were born, etched into poems and songs, immortalized by storytellers who knew that surviving the sea was only half the story. The other half was remembering and learning. Scylla, the predator of rocks, embodies an ever-present, tangible threat. She is visible, fearsome, relentless. Sailors could see her, maybe even attempt to outmaneuver her, but her 6 heads ensured that few could escape entirely. Charybdis, on the other hand, is invisible until the last moment, a force of nature that could appear anywhere, pulling water and lives down into its spinning, watery coffin. Together, they form the ultimate test of human courage, a choice between two evils where every decision carries consequences beyond imagination. The sea doesn't wait, it doesn't negotiate. Every sailor who faced these waters knew the price of hesitation. One miscalculation could spell doom, yet rushing without caution could be equally fatal. It is this tension, the constant negotiation with danger, that made the stories of Scylla and Charybdis resonate through centuries. They were more than monsters, they were metaphors. Life often demands decisions where neither option is safe, where every path carries risk, and what better teacher than the sea itself? Yet, even in the face of danger, the sea offers beauty.
its vastness, its power, its mystery, all serve as a reminder of human curiosity and resilience. Sailors learned to respect it, to understand its moods, and to prepare as best they could. And though the stories warn of horror, they also celebrate ingenuity, courage, and the triumphs of those who navigated the impossible. These tales were not just for entertainment, they were survival guides, lessons on bravery, and mirrors of human nature. And so our journey begins at the edge of legend. We will trace the path of sailors who dared the narrow strait where the monstrous Scylla clings to her rocky perch and the relentless Charybdis churns below, waiting. This is a story of terror, of decision, and of survival. But more than that, it's a story about what it means to face choices that test every ounce of courage. Stay tuned as we uncover the first of these legendary threats, the six-headed terror known as Scylla. We'll explore her origins, her cunning, and the very real danger she posed to sailors navigating these treacherous waters. And remember, every myth we encounter carries a lesson, not just about the sea, but about facing the impossible in our own lives.
The sea has many secrets, but few are as terrifying as what lurks along these rocky cliffs. Today, we meet Scylla, a monster whose very name could stop a sailor's heart. Not hidden in shadow or legend alone, Scylla is real in the minds of those who dared approach her lair, a six-headed terror waiting for the slightest mistake. Imagine a predator that never sleeps, never tires, and whose appetite is as monstrous as her form. Scylla's appearance is unforgettable. 6 heads, each equipped with rows of jagged teeth, stretch from a mass of writhing necks. Her eyes gleam with intelligence, calculating and patient. From her rocky perch, she surveys the narrow passage, sensing every movement of the water, every tremor of the ship's hull. For sailors, one glimpse is enough to freeze them with terror. Her very presence transforms the strait from a passage into a gauntlet of death. Sailors spoke of her as if she were a living nightmare. She did not roam the open ocean. She was anchored to her domain, a constant, inescapable threat. Ships could not go around her. The cliffs and treacherous currents made detours impossible. To navigate past Scylla was to play a deadly game of precision, timing, and nerves, knowing that a single misstep could cost lives. Scylla's attacks were swift, almost surgical. Each head could strike independently, snatching sailors from the decks before the others even had a chance to react. Ancient texts describe her hunger as insatiable. She is not chaotic, she is methodical. Every movement is deliberate, every strike measured to maximize her advantage. Sailors learned quickly, this was not a foe to fight. This was a force to outwit, evade, and survive. Scylla's origins are haunting as her presence. In myth, she was once a beautiful nymph admired for her grace and charm. But jealousy, curses, and the whims of gods twisted her into something unrecognizable. Her beauty was replaced by horror, her gentle form transformed into a 6-headed nightmare. The transformation itself is a story of consequence, a warning that even divine beings could fall victim to envy and wrath. For sailors, knowing her story deepened their fear. It reminded them that terror could be born of both nature and myth. Navigating past Scylla demanded more than skill, it demanded courage. The strait narrows, and the cliffs force vessels closer to her lair. Sailors had to balance the risks, drift too far into the center of the strait, and they risk Charybdis, the whirlpool we will meet later. Stick too close to the cliffs, and Scylla's heads could reach down in an instant. Every decision carried weight, every motion mattered. There was no margin for error, no chance to correct a mistake once it was made. Sailors' accounts describe sounds that could haunt even the bravest, guttural growls, the snap of jaws, and a low, almost whispering hissing echoing through the rocks.
It was more than noise, it was a warning. To hear Scylla before seeing her meant the danger was near. To see her without reacting meant almost certain death. Her very existence teaches a lesson in vigilance, caution, and respect for forces far beyond human control. What makes Scylla particularly terrifying is not just her physical form, but her method. She strikes from multiple angles, her heads moving independently, yet in perfect coordination. Sailors could avoid one, only to be caught by another. There is no fighting her directly, no conventional weapon that could match her speed and strength. Every encounter is a test of reflex, intelligence, and pure luck. The narrow strait itself amplifies her power. Unlike open waters where ships could maneuver freely, this passage forces every vessel within reach of her lair. Ancient mariners spoke of the strait as a natural trap. Even seasoned captains had to calculate the winds, the tides, and the timing of their approach to avoid becoming a meal. Scylla turns geography into a weapon, using cliffs, currents, and her own terrifying anatomy as tools of domination. Yet she does not chase beyond her domain. Scylla's terror is controlled, calculated. She waits, observing, testing, striking when opportunity favors her. This patience is part of what makes her deadly. Unlike other monsters of myth, she is not chaotic or mindless, she is deliberate. The narrow strait is her hunting ground, and she knows it intimately, giving her a constant advantage over every ship that dares approach. Scylla's legacy extends beyond fear. She embodies the dangers of overconfidence, the consequences of miscalculation, and the limits of human control over nature. Her story is a warning, a myth that transformed into a symbol of the perils that lie just beyond sight. For sailors, surviving the strait was a triumph. For storytellers, recounting her tale became a way to preserve courage, cunning, and respect for forces greater than any one person. Next, we will turn to the second great peril of this treacherous strait, Charybdis, the devouring whirlpool. Where Scylla strikes from above, Charybdis waits below, turning the waters themselves into a weapon. Together, they form a deadly challenge that has captured imaginations for thousands of years.
The sea can be unpredictable, but some dangers are almost invisible until it's too late. Today, we meet Charybdis, a force of the ocean itself, a swirling vortex capable of swallowing everything in its path. Unlike monsters that strike from cliffs or shadows, Charybdis waits below the surface, silent, patient, and devastating. Imagine a hole in the world that consumes ships, sailors, and waves alike, pulling life down into a spinning abyss. This is no ordinary hazard. This is the devouring heart of the sea. Sailors feared Charybdis not for what they could see, but for what they could not. While Scylla lurks above, visible and terrifying, Charybdis is hidden beneath the waters, a phantom of crushing currents. Its movements are silent until the last moment, and by then, even the most experienced sailors may find their vessel caught in an unstoppable pull. To face Charybdis is to confront the raw, unyielding power of nature in its most violent form. Legends describe Charybdis as the daughter of Poseidon, transformed into a relentless force by the gods as punishment for her greed. Now she exists as a manifestation of unending hunger, an unstoppable whirlpool that leaves nothing untouched. For sailors, this is a force with no mercy, no intent other than consumption. Her power is measured in ships lost, lives swallowed, and tides irreversibly altered. The danger is amplified by the currents that feed her. Water swirls with a force that even the strongest oars cannot resist. The vortex creates waves that collide violently, tossing ships as if they were toys. Sailors fought not just against the pull of Charybdis, but against the chaotic waters it generated. Every maneuver, every row of an oar required split-second decisions. Even slight miscalculations could result in disaster.
Unlike Scylla, who strikes with 6 visible heads, Charybdis represents a danger that cannot be measured by sight. You cannot see the teeth, claws, or form. You only see the results, a ship vanishing into a whirlpool, the waves around it roiling in violent spirals. The fear she inspires is different, less about being attacked, more about being powerless, helpless against an all-consuming force. Her terror is subtle, invisible, but absolute. Sailors' accounts describe a noise unlike any other, a deep, almost mechanical roar rising from beneath the surface, followed by silence as the waters settle until the next pull begins. It is a rhythm, terrifying and predictable only in its unpredictability. Charybdis never sleeps, never tires. The ocean is her hunting ground, and she controls it completely. For those approaching the narrow strait, this meant that even if they avoided Scylla's heads above, Charybdis could still claim them without warning. Her power lies not only in the whirlpool itself, but in the way she transforms the strait into a trap. Ships must hug the cliffs to avoid the center of the vortex, but doing so risks Scylla's reach. Sailors were forced into impossible decisions, navigating between a visible predator and an invisible killer. Every choice demanded precision. Every misstep could be fatal. This is why the strait is remembered not just as a passage, but as a gauntlet, a test of human skill, nerve, and endurance. Charybdis also symbolizes the uncontrollable forces of the natural world. Unlike Scylla, who reacts and hunts deliberately, Charybdis is an extension of the ocean itself. She is chaos personified, a swirling manifestation of currents and tides that obey no human command. Sailors had no choice but to respect her, to plan around her patterns, and to hope that timing and luck would favor them. Encountering Charybdis is a reminder that the sea, while life-giving, can also be an unstoppable adversary. Despite her danger, Charybdis is not mindless. Her pull is consistent, predictable only to those who understand the sea's rhythm. The wisest sailors watched the waves, the debris, and the currents, reading the water as if it were a map. Timing their passage, adjusting sails and oars, they learned that survival depended on observation, intuition, and patience. But even mastery offered no guarantee. Charybdis was relentless, and she demanded respect. The comparison to Scylla highlights why the strait was so deadly. One danger is visible, a monster that can be seen, predicted, and avoided with care. The other is invisible, a force that can strike anywhere at any time. Together, they create a perfect trap. Sailors navigating these waters faced the ultimate test: evade what they can see, anticipate what they cannot, and hope that the sea itself will allow passage. This is why the myth endures. It captures a universal truth about risk, courage, and the limits of human control. Charybdis is a reminder that danger often comes from unexpected places. The ocean, while life-giving, can also be unforgiving. She embodies patience, power, and inevitability, a force of nature that commands awe and respect. For those who sailed the ancient seas, survival meant acknowledging her presence, anticipating her movements, and praying that skill and timing were enough to escape her grasp. Next, we will explore the impossible choice sailors faced when trapped between Scylla above and Charybdis below. One path threatened by visible horror, the other by an unseen abyss. Together, they test the limits of courage, strategy, and human endurance.
Imagine facing a choice with no safe option. Ahead lies a strait flanked by two deadly forces. On one side, the six-headed monster Scylla waits, perched among jagged rocks, her jaws snapping hungrily. On the other, Charybdis churns the waters into a spinning abyss, ready to swallow any ship that drifts too close. One path promises immediate, visible danger. The other hides an invisible, relentless force.
The decision is not just difficult, it is a life or death gamble. Every captain who approached this narrow passage understood the stakes. There was no turning back. Each choice carried consequences that could not be undone. To steer too close to the cliffs meant risking Scylla's multiple heads snapping down. To hug the center of the strait meant risking Charybdis's overwhelming pull. Neither path offered certainty, and yet every moment delayed increased the danger. Hesitation could be as fatal as a misstep. The stories sailors passed down were terrifying. Accounts describe Scylla striking with terrifying precision, each head reaching down to seize a sailor before another could react. Ships would be torn apart, men lost in seconds. Even the bravest crews could only watch as the monster claimed what the sea had already decided would be hers. The fear she inspired was immediate, tangible, and unrelenting. Charybdis's danger was different, but no less deadly. Sailors recounted the terror of seeing the waters twist into impossible funnels, waves colliding with uncontrollable force, and decks vanishing beneath them. Unlike Scylla, there was no creature to attack or negotiate with, only an unstoppable, invisible current that could erase everything in an instant. It was not violent in the traditional sense, it was inevitable. Once caught, survival depended on luck and timing alone. This was the ultimate test of judgment. Sailors had to weigh the visible horror of Scylla against the hidden menace of Charybdis. There were no guarantees. Every sailor knew that no amount of skill could fully eliminate the risk. The strait demanded courage, calculation, and a willingness to face the consequences of impossible choices. It is this dilemma that has made the story endure for centuries, a metaphor for decisions in life where every option carries danger. Imagine standing at the helm, heart racing, every sense alert. To steer closer to Scylla means exposing yourself to her deadly reach. To steer toward Charybdis means trusting that the currents and your own timing will allow survival. Each decision must account for wind, waves, and the relentless pressure of time. There is no room for hesitation, and yet every instant carries the weight of potential disaster. The choice is a paradox of survival, a known threat versus an unknown one. With Scylla, the danger is visible. You can see her, anticipate her attacks, and try to evade them, but she is relentless and unforgiving. With Charybdis, the danger is invisible until it's too late. You cannot predict exactly where the whirlpool will strike or how it will move. Both paths demand skill, both paths demand courage, and both paths demand an acceptance that loss may be inevitable. This is why sailors spoke of the strait as a test of nerve and wisdom. Those who survived emerged not only with skill, but with stories that would echo for generations. Every choice carried consequences. Every maneuver was a lesson. The strait is not just a physical challenge, it is a crucible of human decision-making under extreme pressure. It forces the mind to weigh risk, anticipate outcomes, and act decisively in a moment when hesitation can be fatal. What would you do in their place? Would you risk the monster you can see or the invisible force beneath the waves? Would you trust skill, instinct, or luck? These are not just questions for myth. They are questions anyone facing impossible choices has asked in some form. The Strait of Scylla and Charybdis has become more than a story about sea monsters. It has become a symbol of risk, courage, and the delicate balance of human decision-making under pressure. Sailors learned to read the waters, anticipate movements, and act with precision. Every adjustment mattered. A single misstep could result in one of the deadliest outcomes imaginable. The strait demanded respect, focus, and nerve. No amount of experience could make the danger disappear, but experience could improve the chances of survival. It is a stark reminder that some choices in life carry no safe options, only degrees of risk and responsibility. The legend of Scylla and Charybdis teaches that survival is not only about strength, but about judgment. It is about recognizing which danger is more manageable, understanding the limits of control, and accepting that even the wisest decisions may carry loss. The sailor's dilemma is universal. In moments of extreme pressure, we must choose the lesser evil and commit fully, knowing that hesitation or doubt can make even the best choice deadly. As the sailors navigate the passage, the lesson becomes clear. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act in spite of it. Strategy, observation, and calm under pressure are as vital as strength or speed. In the narrow strait, every decision counts, and every choice carries consequences that can last a lifetime. Next, we will explore the enduring legacy of these myths and how the story of Scylla and Charybdis continues to teach lessons about life, risk, and decision-making even today.
Survival is never guaranteed, especially when the sea tests you at every turn. Some ships emerge battered, some are lost entirely, claimed by Scylla's jaws or Charybdis's relentless pull. For those who make it through, the experience is more than a relief. It is a lesson written in salt, sweat, and courage. Every scar on a ship, every sailor who clings to life, tells a story of skill, judgment, and the will to endure the impossible. The Strait of Scylla and Charybdis was never just a physical danger. It became a symbol, a mirror of life itself. The myths told of monsters and whirlpools, but beneath the surface lies a deeper truth. Some decisions in life have no perfect outcome. We are often forced to choose between risks, to navigate paths where every option carries danger, and to act despite uncertainty. Just like the sailors, our survival depends not on avoiding risk entirely, but on weighing the lesser danger and committing to a course of action. Think of it this way. Scylla represents the threats we can see, those dangers that confront us head-on. Charybdis represents the hidden challenges, the invisible forces that can pull us under if we aren't careful. Life rarely offers a perfect path. Often we must choose between risks, sometimes between the visible problem we can address and the invisible one we can only hope to evade. The sailors of legend lived this reality every day. Their courage, their ingenuity, and even their mistakes became lessons for generations to come. The story of survival is not just about luck, it's about awareness and decisive action. Observing the waters, anticipating threats, and understanding the limits of your vessel and crew could mean the difference between life and death. In modern terms, it's a lesson in preparation, foresight, and strategy. The sailors faced their monsters and currents with only instinct, skill, and courage. No guarantees, only calculated risks. The strait became a testing ground for both human and myth, for the tangible and the metaphorical. These myths endure because they speak to universal truths. The dangers of Scylla and Charybdis may seem distant, ancient, or fantastical, but the underlying lesson resonates even today. Every choice we make carries risk, every path has consequences, and the ability to act wisely under pressure can determine success or failure. Like the sailors navigating the strait, we too must balance visible and invisible challenges, predict outcomes, and accept that mistakes may come at a cost. The myth transforms from mere storytelling into a framework for understanding human experience. There is also a communal lesson here. Survival often depends on collaboration, trust, and shared effort. Individual skill is essential, but even the most competent captain cannot manage the strait alone. Every crew member's observation, every coordinated action, every moment of courage contributes to the outcome. This is why the myth emphasizes human ingenuity alongside supernatural danger.
It celebrates both resilience and cooperation, showing that even against overwhelming odds, collective effort can tip the scales in favor of life. Over centuries, these tales moved beyond literal interpretation. Scylla and Charybdis became metaphors for life's challenges, the impossible choices, the visible dangers, the unseen threats, and the need for calculated courage. Scholars, storytellers, and philosophers use the myth to illustrate moral dilemmas, leadership decisions, and personal struggles. The story reminds us that while monsters may no longer stalk narrow straits, every day presents situations where we must navigate risk, act decisively, and accept responsibility for the outcomes. And yet there is beauty in this reflection. After the storm, the water calms. The danger fades, leaving lessons, scars, and a newfound respect for forces larger than ourselves. The sailor's journey through the strait mirrors our own journeys through life, facing uncertainty, making difficult choices, enduring consequences, and emerging wiser and stronger. The myth of Scylla and Charybdis continues to remind us that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the ability to act in spite of it. Modern readers and listeners can relate to this even without a ship or a storm. Life often presents situations where no option is entirely safe, where decisions must be made under pressure, and every choice has consequences. Business, relationships, career, and personal growth all present straits where we must navigate between risks. The myth transforms into a guide, a parable for decision-making, risk management, and resilience in the face of uncertainty. The enduring power of these myths lies in their ability to teach across time. The strait is no longer just a place between cliffs and whirlpools. It becomes a metaphorical space between challenges, between dangers we see and those we cannot. Scylla and Charybdis personify fear, consequence, and the test of judgment. Their story illustrates that life is rarely straightforward, that courage and foresight matter, and that survival, literal or metaphorical, depends on careful navigation, understanding risk, and decisively committing to action. The tale lives on because it continues to resonate. From ancient sailors to modern viewers, the story reminds us that choices are rarely perfect, that danger often comes in many forms, and that the measure of success is not avoiding risk, but navigating it wisely. The strait between Scylla and Charybdis remains a timeless symbol of challenge, strategy, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. If you've enjoyed exploring this ancient myth, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit the button to join our community and uncover more incredible stories from history, legend, and mythology. These tales are more than stories. They're lessons, adventures, and windows into human courage, waiting for you to discover them.